So, in my last lecture, I was talking about Confucianism in relation to women as well, and how women are highly marginalized within this system. Um, and so, with a gender bias and a hierarchicalness, many of the communists later in China would argue that Confucianism is an elitist, feudalistic concept. There might, be some truth to that. On the same token, we should also appreciate that it comes out of a lot of wars and the desire for stability in society. Um, in any case, um, I think some of the main elements that I've discussed are crucial for understanding overall what to conceptualize when it comes to Confucianism and what's important about it to people in China who embrace these ideas. The issue of family, I think, is super fundamental. Okay, and respecting your elders and authority. Okay. Um, Another important Chinese philosophy that emerges out of China from around the same time period is called Taoism. The old system from Chinese to English used to put a T for a D sound. So sometimes you'll see it read, wrote looking like Taoism, but it was always pronounced Taoism, and now they're at least finally they're putting a D there. Um, but Lao Tzu is considered the founder. It's not clear if he actually existed or not, but us historians always, you know, crashing that party of, did this guy really exist? Well, in any case, his legendary character, it like he is the founder, and many times his important works, the Dao De Jing, is called Lao Tzu by Chinese writers, and he ends up having a very different approach in the writings, or whoever wrote the Dao De Jing, the original text, is a very different way of looking at things than the Confucianists. So I'll give you an example here. Here's some excerpts from the Tao Te Ching. Trying to govern the world with force, I see this is not succeeding. The world is a spiritual thing. It can't be forced. To force it is to harm it. To control it is to lose it. Sometimes things lead, sometimes they follow, sometimes they blow hot, sometimes blow cold, sometimes expand, sometimes collapse. Therefore, the sage avoids extremes, avoids extravagance, avoids excess. And then here we see powerful men are well advised not to use violence, for violence has a habit of returning. Thorns and weeds grow wherever an army goes, and lean years follow a great war. A general is well advised to achieve nothing more than his orders, not to take advantage of his victory, nor to glory, boast, or pride himself, to do what is dictated by necessity, but not by choice. For even the strongest force will weaken with time, and then its violence will return and kill it. Now, the Tao Te Ching is kind of popular within a certain kind of new agey hippie context, even within American culture. What's often not understood about it is that just like Confucianism was a philosophy meant to be implemented by an emperor, this was also a text that um, was in the hopes that a ruler would apply as well. Okay, um, and there's simply a different way of looking at governance, right? Um, and we see this more when we get to one of the major Taoist philosophers named Wang Zu. He comes around the 4th century BCE, and he's constantly criticizing Confucianism. It's kind of like if you read the Gospels of Jesus, where Jesus is always having debates with the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Um, Zhuangzi is constantly poking at Confucianists, and he's basically mocking them many times. And sometimes the settings within his text are him addressing deliberately some of the obsessions with rituals and conformity and this rigidness that is seen to be a part of Confucianism, while Zhuang Zu in his Taoist philosophy is spontaneous and it's more natural, or the idea of being into nature, and it gets into a little more speculative philosophy that Confucius would have never wasted his time doing. It's interesting. Here's a story from Zhuang Zu. It says, one day Zhuang Zu and a friend were walking by a river. Look at the fish swimming about, said Zhuang Zu. They are really enjoying themselves. You are not a fish, replied the friend, so you can't truly know that they are enjoying themselves. You are not me, said Zhuang Su, so how can you know that I do not know that the fish are enjoying themselves? And there's so much stuff like this in Confucianism. Okay, so Taoism then, actually just go back to state, is more nature-based and less into hierarchy and rigidness, more into flexibility. There's a concept that a stiff reed breaks in the wind and the flexible one bends with it. And so Taoists and Confucianists are going to be at odds with each other at many times, and at the same time, within China, they're going to fuse together to be kind of essentially a blend of Chinese philosophy on many different, or in Chinese religion and Chinese popular culture. Taoism now in China is more about rituals and herbs and all sorts of things that are beyond just this philosophical context as well. Okay, so that's something I needed to point out also. Many of you know the Yinyang symbols, and this has been an important concept in China. What I really want to point out about it, though, is not in the West we tend to think of things in extremes. Like, I go back to the Star Wars things. There's the Force and there's the dark side, the Empire and Resistance. There's pure evil and there's pure good. Well, you notice that one here, this light has a little bit of darkness, and this darkness has a little bit of light. And so in China, and the idea, there's not a pure evil and a pure good. There are certain dominant elements that essentially will still have a little bit of one in the other. Okay, something else to point out. This is all I'm going to cover for this first section of China, and then we'll go a little bit further into the development of its civilization and some more of the dynasties in the next section.